Teachers of Reddit, what is the most depressing thing a student has told you about their home life? School counselor here. My second year I had a courageous student who suffered from a rare, debilitating disease. She didn't have many friends because she was never in school and always in hospitals. She loved reading though. She brought books with her to the hospital. Unfortunately, due to the disease, her eyesight was now deteriorating, and she knew she would eventually go blind. She cried in my office that she would miss her books, and didn't want to be alone in the dark. I couldn't help crying with her. She transitioned to audiobooks on her iPod. This was roughly 14 years ago, a time when middle schoolers didn't have smartphones. A year later she passed away. My hope is she's at peace, reading all the books she wants, with other friends she's met. This just made me cry my eyes out. It's so tragic. Shit, didn't want to be alone in the dark, hauntingly sad. Taught at an inner city charter school. Had a bright 6th grade girl who started sleeping during my classes, which was not like her. When I asked after school what was up, she told me that her family, her 2 younger sisters, and crackhead mom, moved into the homeless shelter, and the last time she slept through the night, all their stuff got stolen. Oh shit, we had a kid like that. He slept every day, and the principal told me that the family got robbed at a homeless shelter, so they were squatting in a vacant house. It was his job to stay up all night and keep lookout. He was 12. We let him sleep in the nurse's office. I teach at an inner city public school. I had an autistic child with visible decay in his front teeth and a general lack of cleanliness, who could not help his sudden outbursts, because that's what his autism told him to do. I loved him so much. He appeared to always need a haircut. I loved him. He sat at my desk and I would smile while he obsessed about his work. When I found out he had become homeless, I had a complete meltdown. So much unfairness in the world. I keep cards in my desk with happy notes, and before vacations I slide a $20 into one and send him home with some money in his pocket. Until you've seen what real poverty looks like, you can't imagine it. It's why it hurts me so much that we vilify the poor. This was a few years ago. This student came into class one day really late and escorted my some official. He threw his bag on the ground and sat in his seat frowning. Turns out, the day before he went home and his foster parents had decided they no longer want him, so he went into the care of social services. Everything about this child went downhill from there. I was also in an interview with a mother and her son, and she straight up tells us that she's not too concerned about her son as he's not her favorite child. The defeated look on her son's face still tears me up. The fact that people like this are able to have kids while loving people struggle to conceive is fucked up on a cosmic scale. I just replied to another comment about a similar situation my former Dill encountered last year as a school counselor. One of her 5th graders who had been adopted from Ethiopia tried to kill himself. His adoptive mother got pregnant, so she and her husband decided they didn't need him anymore and were trying to give him back to the adoption agency. Some people are completely heartless. Got a message today about why a student could not come to class yesterday. Sorry, I couldn't come to class. There were gunshots right outside my apartment and I thought I was going to die. The police did come eventually and I had to give a statement. I will get the work from yesterday done today. Thanks. Yeah, you get that extension. It's so very sad that the kid thinks that is the biggest thing that you will worry about, the work that he didn't do yesterday. Poor kid. Yeah, sometimes family emergency means a long sad story that nobody wants to explain while calling in to explain why they're missing class. Like today, my stepson had a family emergency and missed online school because he ran away from his bio mom's house last night. She was her usual controlling and abusive self all day yesterday while he tried to attend online school, stabbing her nails into his scalp so his hair hides the marks, screaming swears, and even taking the computer away from him during class for timeouts. And apparently the last straw was making him look at her and talk to her while she took a bath. He's 13 years old, and I can't exactly scold him for deciding he's tired of being forced to look at his mother's tits and bush, and trying to walk the mile down the road to his dad's house instead. CPS only got involved long enough to give him a card for a program that'll let him live with his elderly grandparents for most of the year, but insisted he go back to his mom's house today. I am hungry. How much time until the break? Kid who didn't have food at home, I will quit school and become a criminal, because robbing is the only thing I'm good at. Teenager who had a very bad situation at home. Edit for some context, I was a teacher at a public school in a poor region in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and many children had problems at home. Many of them didn't have a father, lived in small houses in the slums, etc. The first child didn't have food at home. All teachers knew about it. His mother had a lot of problems and all his siblings were in the same situation, so every day the most important thing for him was to eat, obviously. The teenager apparently had food, but there was a history of violence in his family and he had already committed crimes, and he probably felt empowered by it, because he apparently felt bad and stupid in other activities. I wasn't the regular teacher, I was part of an NGO that offered specific attention to students that were behind the others, so every day I would go to their regular class and pick 6 to 10 of them to have special classes, so at the beginning they felt really bad and other students were calling them stupid. At the end of the program many students wanted to join us and our students felt much more confident in general, so it was great, but obviously we didn't solve the hunger problem and this teenager wasn't convinced that he had a future out of crime. My son started school in September and doesn't eat breakfast, his choice, and won't eat the snack, fruit, so he's always starving by lunchtime, and it honestly worries me that the school will think he's not being fed at home. I had a 10-year-old crying and wishing she was dead. Her older brothers at home were being awful to her, bullying and hitting her. She was saying I should just let her go so she could kill herself and then she wouldn't be a bother to us or her brothers anymore. Sat her down with the teacher, a cup of tea, some cookies, and talked with her throughout the afternoon. Not much we could do about the brothers, but she left with a smile and came back at school the next day with a smile as well. Now I'm just keeping my eye on her in case things go bad again, but so far so good. Apparently talking to us encouraged her to tell her mother about everything that happened, so at least someone at home also kept an eye out for her. Please don't give up on this girl. I was being abused by my brother and I would try to tell my teachers, but they told me it's just horseplay. He's my older brother, stop overreacting. No. He was sexually abusing me and beating the ever-living shit out of me every day. I'd try so hard to tell people but no one believed it was that bad. My parents saw and didn't care. They let him do what he wanted. Please keep your eye out on this little girl. My mum is an English teacher and once told me about a child, 13M, whose mother had committed suicide a few years ago. In a creative writing task a few years after it happened, the question revolves around finding out a secret. The boy then wrote a descriptive piece about finding a body hanging in his front room lifelessly swinging. Heartbreaking stuff. He had his counselors up and said he just write it from the heart. Poor guy. I had an essay I had to write about the hardest thing I've ever had to overcome or some generic shit like that. The abuse I went through wasn't exactly school appropriate, so the only thing I could think of was having to take care of my mother after my dad killed himself because she couldn't hold herself together. Mind, I was sexually abused by him for years, but I had to deal with CPS, school forcing weekly therapy on me with someone who sucked at her job, my own trauma, etc. But, I couldn't just say yeah, dealing with a pedophile killing himself and having to seem sad and also running the house for like 2 weeks, so I ended up just talking about being told about it and like, how hard it was to lose a dad or something. Other people talked about not making a school sports team, they're like 100-year-old grandparents dying, and normal life things. Oops. A few weeks ago one of my online kids had a band-aid on her left temple, so I asked what happened. She said my mom was angry with me and threw a pencil and it stuck in my head, with blood. In 5th grade some kid accidentally stuck a Ticonderoga pencil in my pinky and I still have a very faint scar, like a little slightly darker spot. Okay. I have to know. How fucking hard did that woman throw pencil and how fucking unlucky was it to cause the temple to bleed? Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.